πες μου, τι φράση σου είπε?
Ότι θα πεθάνεις. Λοιπόν.
Η μόνιμη απειλή.
Βεβαίως, σε προσωπικό επίπεδο είχα πάρα πολλές εμπειρίες που επιδίωξα και άλλες ήταν και χωρίς την επιδίωξή μου. Πρέπει όμως να πω τα εξής. Πέρα από το τι θα καταθέσω εγώ, μπορεί να έχει μικρή αξία. Εμένα μπορεί να με αμφισβητήσουν. Δεν μπορεί να αμφισβητήσουν όμως τον ίδιο Χριστό. Δηλαδή δεν μπορεί να ευσέλθει ο Χριστός. Διότι ήρθε για να καταλύσει το κράτος του διαβόλου, αλλά και άρχον του κόσμου τούτου, όπως επισήμανε την στο Ευαγγέλιο, είναι ο διάβολος. Άρα νομίζω έχει πολύ μικρή αξία. Βεβαίως έχει αξία να ακουστούν οι εμπειρίες μου, αλλά το λέω με όλη την καλή διάθεση σε αυτούς που θέλουν να με αμφισβητήσουν. Η πρώτη εμπειρία ήταν όταν μέσα είχε προηγηθεί μια πνευματιστική τελετή ατομικού χαρακτήρα με ένα συγκεκριμένο τρόπο όπως είχα μάθει. Βεβαίως δεν συνέβη τίποτα. Και
στόχος ποιος ήταν?
Στόχος ήταν εχθρό σε επικοινωνία με κάποια οντότητα, δαιμονική, συγκεκριμένη.
Ώστε από εκεί και πέρα να διαχειριστεί με αυτή την επικοινωνία.
Μέσα από αυτή την επικοινωνία, εκείνη την περίοδο ζητούσα κάτι συγκεκριμένο.
Τι?
Φαίνεται αστείο, αλλά ήθελα να είχα το χάρισμα να μπορώ να διακρίνω κάποιες εξελίξεις μελλοντικές που με αφορούσαν αλλά και σε άλλα άτομα. Αν ήταν δυνατόν. Γι' αυτό λέω ίσως αν είναι αστείο. Για το σκοπό αυτό επικαλέστηκα μια συγκεκριμένη οντότητα. Με συγκεκριμένο τρόπο. Κάτω από συγκεκριμένο τυπικό. Βεβαίως σας είπα, στην πρώτη αυτή δοκιμή δεν υπήρξε αποτέλεσμα. Σε μια ανύποπτη στιγμή όμως που παρουσιάστηκε μια οντότητα μέσα από τον καθρέφτη και συγκεκριμένα Ίσιδα, όσο και φαίνεται αστείο και ακραίο που λέω, η αρχαία θεά των Αιγυπτίων, η οποία βγαίνοντας από τον καθρέφτη με καλούσε να εισέλθω μέσα. Και βεβαίως εκεί υπήρχε και μια στιγμική, ένας διάλογος, ότι ήμουν εκλεκτός και αν ήθελα να την ακολουθήσω. Υποσυνείδητα και οι μηχανισμοί αυτοάμυνας λειτουργήσαν και δεν μπήκα στον καθρέφτη. Και βεβαίως υπήρχε και μια φράση το ότι έχασε την ευκαιρία και έπαψε επικοινωνία.
Ενώ θα μπορούσε να κάνει τι?
Θα μπορούσα να εισέλθω μαζί της μέσα στον καθρέφτη. Σαν μια πύλη. Βεβαίως μπορεί να δοθούν πολλές ερμηνείες. Εγώ δεν έχω αντίρρηση γιατί δεν θέλω να το περιορίσω στα στενά πλαίσια της δικής μου εξήγησης. Άλλωστε έχει απασχολήσει το θέμα.
Αυτή είναι η εμπειρία?
Όχι. Αυτή ήταν η πρώτη, ανεξέλεκτη εμπειρία. Δηλαδή...
Μπορείς να πας βαθύτερα σε παρακαλώ. Δεν έχουμε χρόνο, Βαγγέλη, γιατί πρέπει να μιλήσει την Μαρία.
Από εκεί και πέρα λοιπόν υπήρξε από μέρους μου μια σειρά ενεργειών για συγκεκριμένο τυπικό επικλήσεων. Και
προσφορά δηλαδή στο πνεύμα?
Ούτε προσφορά. Υπάρχει ένα τυπικό, όχι απλώς λατρείας, επικοινωνίας. Αυτό που λέμε πνευματισμό.
Ωραία.
Που βέβαια
κάνεις την επικοινωνία.
Ωραία. Εκεί έρχονται εκεί λοιπόν έρχονται κάποιες οντότητες όταν είσαι όντως μνημείος, όταν γνωρίζεις πραγματικά τη διαδικασία. Ωραία. Είσαι ιερουργός.
Expert on Masonic symbols and architecture, John Daniels, says that Egypt seems to be the inspiration for this fascination with obelisk magic, the phallus of the sun god Osiris in the Egyptian religion. And the same obelisk magic, he said, is practiced today by America's Illuminati elite. and thus they are into sexual debauchery and idolatry. Phallicism, he says, is the veneration and worship of the male and female sex organs, and it is a perverted doctrine of son worship. In Babylon, it was practiced. Queen Semiramis, her husband, Nimrod, the king, erected an obelisk 130 feet high dedicated to her son, claimed to be the reincarnation of her dead husband, the great sun god. But it was in Egypt that America and its Illuminati seemed to relish and focus so much attention, the ancient Egyptian legends and religion. Chief among these is that the sun god Osiris was a consort, a sexual practitioner, with his wife, the great goddess Isis. And from their relationship was produced a son, Horus. There we have the unholy trinity. Now, in these Egyptian legends, it is said that the great sun god Osiris was slain by an enemy, and his body was dismembered and cut into various parts, and through magic, his wife, the great queen of the universe, the great queen of the Egyptian religions, Isis, she was able to bring all the parts of the body back together and assemble him, and he was to be resurrected by magic that she possessed. But unfortunately, there was one part of the body missing, the male member. And so she achieved from stone or wood an idol of his phallus, and then she consummated the sex act with this idol made of material substance. And thus, having done so, this became the legend of the obelisk. It is the phallus, the idol, symbolized as this rebrought together sun god, Osiris of ancient Egypt. These are the brilliantly glazed and colored tiles of the exterior of a store in Los Angeles, California. Using the Art Deco style of architecture, notice how the very clever designers and architects were able to sneak covert subliminal sexual messages. Do you see the two triangles, the male entering the so-called genitals of the woman? Look closely, you'll see it. Of course, the obelisk is found throughout the world. Here's one in Jocelyn, France, that commemorated the Battle of the 30, dated back in 1351. And down England, we find an Egyptian-style obelisk dated 1826 to commemorate Major General Robert Ross. On its base are carvings of winged sun orbs and serpents. The obelisk, of course, is not the only symbol of sex, with its hidden messages of the Illuminati that we find in architecture around the world. For example, there are many Gothic cathedrals throughout Europe, Britain, and the United States that have rose windows. Seemingly very innocent, but in fact they represent the sex organ of the woman, the vagina, the rose. This is a drawing of a rosette-shaped domed building by Italian Leonardo da Vinci. Yes, the famous Da Vinci seemed to be into the Renaissance style, which was of the ancient pagan gods and goddesses, which also, of course, worshipped the sex rite. In Moscow, Russia today, a great new building is going up called the Crystal Island. It will be in the shape of a great lotus flower. The London Sunday Times said it was one of the world's greatest projects. It will be the world's largest building. It is being built by the architect Sir Norman Foster, one of the world's leading Illuminatist architects. 701 meters in diameter, costing over $4 billion. It will have 900 luxury apartments, 3,000 hotel rooms, a fitness complex, a museum, and an international school for 500 students, and countless retail stores. Why the lotus flower? Because the lotus flower, also called the lily in many cultures, represents the female vagina. The egg, or oval, sometimes called the lozenge shape, also is very indicative of the female organ. And we find it as the centerpiece on the wall in this painted mural overlooking deliberations of the United Nations Security Council. Notice the very centerpiece is the oval. And do you see the features of that oval? Yes, at the United Nations, It is the centerpiece of the World Diplomacy Corps. Here, in the ruins of Egypt's Temple of Karnak, you'll find the lily or the lotus carved in stone. Do you see its similarity to the sexual organ? On the cover of the New Age magazine back in January 1989 featured a book entitled A Bridge to Light by 32nd degree Mason Rex Hutchins. The symbology looks innocent at first, but look again. It, in fact, symbolizes the male entrance into the female organ and the overflow of seed or semen, and the Masons call this, in their New Age magazine, a bridge to light. Back to the ancient pagan religions, we see the sexual nature of these mystery religions still worshipped by the Illuminati today. This is the snake goddess worshipped in ancient Babylon and Sumeria. Note the sensual aspect of the breast and also the diamond pattern on the covering garment. And of course, in her hands are the serpents. In many places in the British Commonwealth today, such as this scene in Devonport, New Zealand back in 1985, and another scene at the West Dean School in England today, we see practice of a game and a festival called the Maypole. The children go around the Maypole. In ancient days, there were incredible sexual orgies that occurred during the Maypole festival. And what is the Maypole? Of course, it is representative of the phallus of the sun god. Here we have the Tree of Liberty pole. In this English coin designed by Freemason Thomas Spence back in the days of America's revolution against England. This shows Illuminist revolutionaries, angry but holding a pole, the great Maypole, and at the very top of it is the dismembered head of the Prime Minister of England, William Pitt. And what is this Maypole, this phallus symbol, called on this coin? The Tree of Liberty. Egyptian temples, of course, were beautifully painted and had these great columns that symbolized the phallus of the various gods, and especially of Osiris. Osiris, the sun god, and also the lord of the underworld. And this is the United States, where we find the most interesting of monuments, again returning to the obelisk. It seems the Americans learned of the obelisk from Great Britain. However, because in Philadelphia we have an obelisk that resembles many graveyards and cemeteries found in Great Britain. Here is the tombstone of Commodore William Bainbridge at Christ Church Burial Ground, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But the British Empire in Dublin, Ireland had this mausoleum built for a very wealthy family called the Allen family. It's designed as a tomb. Look very carefully, there's an arch and a tomb for this obelisk. In France, we find the Plaza de la Concorde obelisk and fountain. Egyptian hieroglyphics predominate on this great phallus of the sun god, 220 tons, 75 foot tall, erected in France in the 1830s, brought over from Egypt. It's called the Luxor in Paris. In Rome, Italy, we find an Egyptian obelisk, again in the most unusual of places, standing inside a wheel or circle designed as a great key, the Vatican. Here we have the Pope of Rome with his fish-shaped, that's right, Dagon, the fish god-shaped hat, looking out over the throngs of Catholic faithful who are gathered around the obelisk and the sun wheel during his annual New Year's Day speech and blessing. Why would the Catholic Church and the Vatican erect a great Egyptian obelisk, symbol of the sun god Osiris, right in front of the Vatican? Then we turn to Cleopatra's Needle. In London, England, near the River Thames, is a great Egyptian obelisk that was brought over from Egypt and erected near the government buildings of Whitehall. It was a gift from Muhammad Ali, Viceroy of Egypt, to England. It's called Cleopatra's Needle. Now, interestingly enough, There is another Cleopatra's Needle, an Egyptian obelisk erected in New York Central Park, May 18, 1879. This project for Central Park in New York was financed by railroad magnate William Vanderbilt. A Masonic ritual was naturally conducted on site as this fabulous phallic monument was raised. This is an obelisk found in a Phoenix, Arizona public park. And now in the state of Indiana, at Keystone Crossing, a shopping mall in Indianapolis, an obelisk is displayed at the entrance. Another unusual obelisk can be found at New York City's historic St. Paul's Chapel, almost unseen to many passers-by.